Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion on From ACUE to Breakthrough Faculty Success Stories. During this panel discussion, we're going to hear from two of our faculty members who completed the ACUE training on effective online teaching practices during the last academic year, 2024-2025. And so before we get started, just to level set why we're here, what we want to accomplish and achieve, I'm going to share my screen and you'll see that I've prepared this slide for you posing the question, what is student success? And so you'll note that there are three images that you see on the screen. Um, and so considering the concept, the topic, the theme of student success, if you will, in the chat, if you will list either a number one, a number two, or number three, which image to you reflects or embodies student success? Is that a number one, number two, or number? Good afternoon to those who've just joined us. You'll see on your screen three images. And so we're asking you to select one image that embodies or reflects what student success is to you. Is that number one, number two, or number three? And can you all see the screen? Okay, you can. Look at number three. Two, engagement. Number two. Okay. So we have a lot of threes and twos. So the rationale behind these images, the number one, while there are various factors that contribute to student success, I selected number one because when we think about your first generation student who's coming to college for the first time and just navigating through that entire process, that alone is an aspect of student success that they actually made it to our institution. Number two, yes, because we're looking at graduation, you've persevered, you endured, you've made it to the end. But for the premise of today's discussion, we do want to focus on number three and what does engagement, teaching, learning look like and how it contributes significantly to student success, so that which occurs in the classroom. And so on that note, we're going to begin just by asking if our panelists will briefly introduce yourselves, and then we will jump right into our discussion. And so I'll ask Dr. Wineglass if she'll go first, and then Dr. Presley.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Cassandra Wineglass. I'm an associate professor in the School of Health Sciences. I'm the chair of the Healthcare Management Department, newly appointed chair. So I started August 1st. So still learning, but we're going to get there. This is my third year at Winston-Salem State University. So I'm officially moving from I'm still in the toddler age, but still moving a little bit from it. All right. So just grateful to be here, grateful for the work that we're able to accomplish in our department. And I'm extremely excited to be before you to speak to you a little bit about what my experiences have been since I've been here as a professor at Winston-Salem State University. So thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Tennille Presley. I am a professor of physics in the Department of Chemistry and Physics. And I guess this is now my 15th year at Winston-Salem State. It's hard to believe. Time is truly flying by. Just a little bit about myself. So I do a lot of interdisciplinary work. So I'm trained in biophysics and translational science. I also do some data science as well and some health equity research also. So really, really excited to be here with everybody.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you, everyone who's taken the time today to engage in what I believe will be an insightful conversation. And so to get us started, first question, and we'll have Dr. Wineglass to lead us out with this first question. So what motivated you to pursue ACUE's professional development training, and how has it influenced your teaching philosophy?
Oh, that's a really good question. Honestly, I was in a meeting, uh, and one of my colleagues and I were talking, and I believe ACUE came up in the conversation, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" Wanting to know what it was all about, and so they gave me just a brief description about what it was, and before I knew it, in my discussion with my colleague, I was like, "Oh," she said, "Well, reach out to Dr. Shipp and he'll give you some more information." I was like, "Okay." Well, I never got to reach out to Dr. Shipp because Dr. Shipp reached out to me before I was able to. It said, "Welcome." I was like, "Well, wait a minute. Hold on. No, did I sign up and didn't know I signed up? What happened?" But I'm so happy that I was able to participate in this cohort because I learned so much. A lot of times when you're in a teaching profession, um, you tend to stick to those things that you know, and those things that you know can bring engagement, those things that you know could assist the students in learning more. But one of the things that I learned from being in this cohort, I learned a lot more about myself as an instructor, myself as a professor, and myself as to how I am going to continue this road in ensuring that our students are getting a quality education and able to move beyond the walls of Winston-Salem State University. So I'm so excited. I was so excited to be a part of this because it taught me so much about my teaching philosophy. I had to change some of the things that are in there, right, to ensure that I know that I'm meeting the mark, and not just meeting the mark, but exceeding the mark in teaching excellence for our students to have this ability to be successful. Thank you.
And the same question for you, Dr. Presley.
So mine is a little bit similar yet different. So prior to coming to Winston-Salem State, I was adjunct at another institution, and I was kind of thrown into teaching some online classes, and I just had to kind of feel my way through it. And what I realized is, I guess during that time, and then kind of as we went through the process of COVID and having to teach online, I realized really some of my strengths and my weaknesses. And so a few colleagues had mentioned this particular program, and I thought that it would be a great way for me to really hone into some of best teaching practices and really identify effective ways to be very student-centered, promote some active learning, and really think about ways to create like a sense of inclusivity and belonging. Oftentimes, especially with the courses that I teach, students run from physics. And so by us not having a major, they tend to, I'm kind of one of those professors that they kind of have to pass through depending upon their major. So really, this program really allowed me to think about effective ways where I could really engage students and really kind of connect with them in a different way.
Great. So it sounds like while being the student in the ACUE cohort, it really required a lot of self-reflection And in that self-reflection, it helped to enhance as well as transform the ways in which you engage with our students. So kudos for the self-reflection. All right, next question is, so what evidence-based teaching practices have you implemented that you have found particularly effective in promoting student success? And so this time we'll start with you, Dr. Press.
Okay. So I'm going to tap on active learning again. I like to try to engage the students as much as possible. And so connected with that, I would also say a big thing is transparency. So I've been a lot more intentional since going through this program in regards to helping students know and understand what they have before them. I've spent a lot more time with my syllabus from the beginning, and to make sure that I don't lose track of time or go too fast or go too slow, really try to have that as a guide. So on that first day, I always explain, this is really the agreement between all of us. It's the agreement between myself and you. And so ultimately, if you have a question about what's happening in the 5th week, okay, we're going to go back to the syllabus because it's all about transparency. There's nothing hidden in this course. The grade just doesn't miraculously appear, but it is based off of all the key outline and all the key pieces that are within the syllabus. And so with that, I would suggest that transparency has influenced my aspect of active learning within the classroom, be it online or in person. Many of the students tend to be actively engaged in that capacity when I am able to clearly present to them exactly what the expectations are for the course, the assignments that we're doing, and really kind of connecting it back to the objectives and why they're actually doing particular assignments.
Same for you, Dr. Wineglass.
Thank you. And Dr. Presley and I, we are literally, I jot down some of the same things that she did. But I wanted to add to this communication. One of the things that I implemented, which was what we called in our cohort a jigsaw activity, which literally I separated the groups, separated my entire class into 4 groups and put them into breakout rooms and asked them specific question as it relates to intervention in a specific population. And the group had the opportunity to decide which population they wanted to research. And I gave them 3 questions, and within those 3 questions, they had to be specific and give, some discussion as to why they chose these 3, why they chose the population that they did. And they were only given 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes, we reconvened back into the full body room, and the things that we learned, or the things that I learned from the students, was just remarkable. And some of the titles, some of the types of population they chose was, when you think about it, I was like, this is very interesting. Why would you choose this particular topic? And then I begin to hear a common thread. They had some type of relationship with that particular population as to why they chose that group. And so they were able to speak more freely on it. Although they were in groups, everyone was able to speak to that topic that they were in. So I was so, while I used to do this, a while ago, going this time around felt so much better, felt so much real. Now I was able to see and able to ask the right questions to pull these things from out of them in order for them to engage properly, right? And so I was so enthused because it works. These particular evidence-based guides and teaching practice really do work in these settings if we were to utilize it properly. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to share today. And the other thing I wanted to share was about mini lectures. Um, a lot of times when we're in these online spaces where it's it's a little difficult to get everything you would like to share with your students in a specific time span. So one of the things that I started introducing to the students were many lectures where I would come on, do a video, and give some insights on the lesson, and not only just insight on the lesson, but also some life lessons along the way. And then I posted to the course room, and they're like, I get the results of, oh, Doc, I was just thinking about this, or you just hit a point. Can we have more discussion on this? So the engagement became even more powerful with me doing this many lectures throughout the time that we have on those weeks that we may not physically do a lot of in-person teaching, but we were able to get those mini lectures in, and these videos was able to assist them in their thought process, and not just help me be intentional about the subject matter, but they are as well. And it was just so powerful to see that play out in this area of healthcare management. So thank you.
And could I just ask a follow-up question in reference to the jigsaw activity, particularly since it
Yes.
was executed in an online setting? What were some of the preparatory things that you had to do to make sure that students did not ghost you in the breakouts?
Right. So for one I made sure the rooms were already set up. You know, I had all my rooms already set up. Not only did I have my room set up, I also made sure that prior to them getting in the room, they were already prepped with the questions that they needed um, in order to ensure that that they answered the questions that were given to them. The other thing that I made sure happened is I went once they were in the breakout rooms. I visit each one of the breakout rooms to just check in and see what was being said, and made sure that no one skipped out and say, I'm not going to do this assignment. I made sure that I went into each one of the rooms to ensure that there was engagement. They were answering the question. If they had any questions for me, I was there to ensure that those questions were answered that they needed. So making sure that I go into these rooms and ensure that they were still there. But in the meantime, making sure that they know that they could call on me if they needed me in that room. I also made sure that they had an understanding that being that this is 10 minutes, it's while 10 minutes may seem a little bit lengthy, is not a long time if you're having to get all this information for the questions that you need. So you have to be intentional about your time and intentional about what you're going to present to us, because thereafter, when everyone comes back, there is a presentation. You are talking and letting us know what your group was able to uncover in these types of populations. So just being able to have those just once, setting up the rooms, making sure that the questions were already pre-prepared, making sure that they have access to those specific questions. Also making sure that you as the professor or the instructor, you go in, visit those rooms and make sure that they're in. And if they are in there, if they have any questions, you're there to answer those questions. And then also when there is a time to come back to the big room, make sure that there is an actual time of them being able to engage in those conversations that they had in the rooms, in the private rooms. So those are some of the things.
Right. And in essence, while you talked about different activities, you really encompass what Dr. Presley said about transparency. So
Oh,
it was
yeah.
clear what expectations were in advance so that students could stay engaged throughout the entirety
Mm-hmm.
of the activity. All right. So our next question, I'll give you an opportunity to catch your breath. Dr. Presley, we'll start with you for the next one. So, in your experience, what are the common challenges students face in both either face-to-face and or online courses, and how have you adjusted your teaching to address those challenges?
I would say the top two challenges that I've seen are related to time management and really engagement. So very often, kind of what I tend to see is students come in with this misnomer about physics is just hard. And so they sell themselves short even before they get started. So what I've had to do with that to mitigate it is really build up and boost up their confidence. So we tend to have a conversation centered around real life applications. So I may have football players in a class and we'll talk about sports. I know NFL is starting tonight and I'm excited. So we may start talking about just some everyday typical applications. And then we begin to kind of integrate different things. Once I had some students to talk about, I had some bakers in a class and we started talking about, different things that they tend to do that's related to them baking. And then ultimately what I always suggest to them is I start mentioning things and then I say, well, you realize you just talked physics to me. And they're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, no, yes, you did. And so what I always suggest to students is that you can give me any topic and I can help you to be able to see the physics in that particular situation and scenario. So after I kind of engage them in that capacity, it's almost like I was able to break that barrier a little bit. And so now I have them engaged. So then trying to get them to properly and effectively manage their time, because oftentimes they'll think, oh, this is just another science class, or oh, this is a math class, or this is chemistry. And what I always suggest is, no, this is physics. And so the approach that you take should be a bit different. So really helping them with different strategies and recognize whatever time span we have in class, be it online, in person, like Dr. Wineglass mentioned, I do try to incorporate many lectures as well. I have done the breakout rooms also, and I provide numerous videos for students to look at as well. But sometimes I'll get it where they say, well, I didn't have time to look at it. And what I always suggest is you don't have time to not look at it, because you're really in a roundabout way, you're learning another language. So how you learn another language, how you learn to play the sport you're playing, how you learn to play the instrument you're playing. If you're in the marching band, all those things, they take time. So really helping them to recognize and understand that ultimately it's not just going to come by process of osmosis. If I show you how to do a problem, okay, you look at it, you may memorize a few things, but then if I ask you to do it or do something similar, it's going to take some practice because you're learning along the way.
Excellent. Go ahead, Dr. Monell. You had a question or comment?
Yeah, Morse, can you guys hear me? I know my
Yes.
thing. Hello, can you hear me? So I'm going through ACUE now, so I'm like super excited going through the process. So your feedback is invaluable. I think what Dr. Presley said is so poignant. So I teach, among many of the classes I teach our research course and our upper level research course, which is heavy in SPSS, statistical analysis, stuff like that. And oftentimes these students literally spaz out, right? They go in there like, oh my God, stats, oh my gosh. And so I probe them and, we do like a little kind of mini survey type thing where, I asked them, I was like, how many of you grew up thinking that you weren't good at math? And everybody raises their hand. And I was like, why is that? And they would be like, well, my teacher said, I told my teacher, maybe I had an issue with a problem, grade school stuff. And, unfortunately, I would tell them or say to them, unfortunately, in those instances, it's not necessarily your level of understanding or competency. It's instructional. It's the effort to put forth to help you understand that you are good at math. Maybe the concept you didn't understand to kind of break that. And then it's reinforced by at home, unfortunately. If your parents, maybe aren't good at math or said they weren't good at math, and then it's generations. So we get them at the collegiate level, and then they're like, no, I can't do numbers, I can't do physics. And to tease Dr. Press, I was the same. I took physics in undergrad. It was something with like planetary science, physics thing. And that was like, at my campus, the easiest physics class for a guy like me who probably didn't take it as seriously as I should. But no, that's neither here nor there. But I think the techniques you guys have identified, like not many, but several students do come to us with those those blocks, right? Those mental blocks. No, I can't do physics. I can't do stats. I can't do math. And I'm always counting on like, well, why not? And well, we're gonna change that today. And then by the end of the semester, after different exercises, they finally get more comfortable and confident with it. Then they're like, Dad, okay, Doc, it wasn't as bad as it was. I was like, I told you. So anyhow, I just want to say, Dr. Presley, good job on that. But you triggered something in me when you said that, and it was funny. So
Thank you.
And what you all just described, I wrote down that this is the genius of educators, that we have the ability to simplify and make practical anything. Anything. So look at all this genius on here today. All right, go ahead on Dr. Wineglass, your opportunity to share some challenges.
I just wanted to share a good deal of my students when they come in, they have this fear of speaking or speaking in public, right? And so majority of my coursework requires them to speak, right? And being able to speak in public and being able to have your voice heard and being able to set aside your biases and still be able to get your point across to those you are speaking to in the community or whomever your employees or community employees or whoever your higher ups may be. And so one of the things that, and I just was speaking to Dr. Shipp earlier, and I was saying to him, I almost was still in my classroom when I came right before coming in, because we got on a topic in my class this afternoon. We were talking about social determinants of health, and one of the areas that we really started hammering in on was equity and equality and what that means and what that means in the community and how that looks in the community and how this affects health in the community. I put up two pictures in the on the board. One houses probably was about 1.5 million. The other one was dilapidated, but someone was living in that home. And I asked the question, if this patient was to leave the hospital with their prescription in hand, which one is likely to adhere to what the prescription is prescribing them to do? Who is going to be the one who's going to take the medicine as prescribed? And so the great debate began. And and we had those that were adamant that the one that lived in the $1.5 million home was going to be the one that adhered to the treatment plan and was going to, and had the access that they needed, was going to be able to move forward as they needed in their health, while the one who lived in the dilapidated home was unable to do so. And I had one brave soul who rarely speaks, got up and said, I beg to differ. There may be folks that live in a dilapidated home that if we're looking at the house, we're going to say they don't take their medication. Well, in fact, they may have family members that is able to take them to the doctor. They may have family members that may be able to take them to the pharmacy. They may have a support system. Although they're living in a dilapidated home, it does not necessarily mean they're not going to do what the prescription said. So at this point, we have now gotten into a debate as to who have we let our biases determine who is going to adhere to the medication. And so, believe it or not, they were still talking about this when I left. I said, listen, we have to go. Class is over. Y'all know class is over. But they were so enthused about this topic, and it jolted something in their mind that even those that do not talk regularly in class felt they needed to, felt that their voice needed to be heard. And one of the things she said, I've seen folks that live in these homes and they do take their medication. They do what the doctors say. So we cannot just say because they live in a dilapidated home that they're not going to do what the doctor says. So that was one that I was so impressed. And I was just so enthused. My heart is still beating fast because I'm like, she don't even speak. Oh my God. We was able to get her to talk in this class today, and it hit home, and we were able to share that sometime our biases will cause us to think the wrong way. That's all I have.
And so what I heard from you all describing time management, engagement, and public speaking as challenges, while challenges, you found them opportunities because you were able to create bridges to address those challenges, and your students felt safe enough to explore the content, but to face, per se, their fears in a loving and affirming environment is what I heard. Challenge, but there was also an opportunity, and you seized the opportunity. So thank you for doing so. Okay, our next question is, and either one of you can jump in first. Can you share an example, which you've pretty much just alluded to with the student you just referenced, but a moment of a student success story where you saw a significant breakthrough in learning as a direct result of using an evidence-based teaching practice? So when you reflect upon the many students that you teach, do you recall a defining moment where a student really shined as a result of a teaching practice that you implemented? Whoever would like to go first.
Dr. Wineglass, you look like you're thinking. You want to go or you want me to go? Okay. So one thing that I've implemented in classes, it was really a trial initially to see how it would work. I personally love escape rooms, and I really started thinking about how could I pour that into the classroom. So I created escape room assignment. And so the approach was to use it in the capacity of word problems. Oftentimes students become very intimidated by the word problems. So with the escape room, what I did was I broke down the word problem in such a way where, if you think about how escape room is, if anybody's ever been, you have to pay attention to the clues in order to get out of the room. So that's literally what I did with the students. So I put them into groups and I gave them the escape room assignment. And so a couple of barriers that they had to literally escape the room was that we had the class in W.B. Atkinson. And so I suggested that the elevator was broken and the stairs were barricaded, but they had to get out of the building and basically get across the street to F.L. Atkins. So it was amazing at first because many of the students literally looked at me like I had two heads, because they literally said, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to kill myself to try to get out? I said, you have to get out, and you have to get out of the building within 10 minutes. So it was amazing to look and see the process that they went through in regards to collaborating, talking about, okay, well, we can do this and we can do that. Well, we understand that the windows can't open here, but maybe we could do this. Can we create a rope and then jump off the banister from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor and go through the lobby to get out? So all of the different ways that they collaborated together to be able to get out. And so they didn't even realize that they were doing the calculations, they were utilizing the equations, and ultimately that particular assignment, I had about like a 85% success rate. I had a few students that just gave up because they said, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not doing this. So I had to massage that a little bit more with that smaller percentage, but 85% for them to really engage, really kind of collaborate with respect to each other, and really just kind of have them to think about it in a different way was a win, in my opinion.
Dr. Wineglass?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My mute has been mute button, couldn't find it. All right. So for the very first time ever last semester, I used a TED Talk. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go over, but we're going to see how this works out. So we went, I uploaded the TED Talk, and one of the things that the students had to do was express to me their thought processes on what the speaker talked about as it relates to population health. And that's what that's what the speaker was talking about. And in the midst of that TED Talk, there were some specifics that the speaker was identifying and highlighting. And at the very end, they also one of the challenge that they asked the audience was to challenge themselves in where they were going to move forward and be better in their community. So one of my students, well, several of the students literally stated in their assignment, Dr. Wineglass, I didn't know you were going to come this heavy on us the first class. What are you doing? And they were like, I didn't know I would have had to do a self-reflection, or I mean, they literally they were going in. They were like, Dr. Wineglass, this is heavy. This is really heavy for us to be thinking about. And one of the students said to me, I literally had to think about my life career and how I was implementing things in my profession. And after looking at this TED Talk, it really changed my perspective on a lot of things in the way I thought. So now I'm rethinking how I communicate in the workforce, how I move in the community, and how I am going to be better at what I do to ensure that our community could be better. And she said, my life has changed. I mean, just that one, she was like, I did not know you were going to come. This is powerful. But it made me think, and it helped me to think, and this is her talking, it helped me to think about how I literally lived my life in this field. And now I have to rethink that way because I haven't done my due diligence. Now she's thinking of ways that how she could be better, how she could maneuver in the workplace. And by her listening to this particular TED Talk, she was able to see a deficit in her department and was able to go to the higher ups, speak to them about the deficits, and now she was able to make a change in her department. So I mean, that right there just really, it helped me to understand that, you know, well, although I've never used this particular tool in class, it was very, very helpful, and it was needed in order for me to even bring this out in these particular students. So yeah, that was powerful for me.
Right. Okay, so we are coming to our last question for the day. You all have done excellent. I give both of you an A. So last question is, so what tool, resource, or strategy would you recommend to our colleagues today to drive student success in their courses? Is there a tool, a resource, or a strategy that you will encourage everyone to adopt or implement in their classes to promote student success?
I have been promoting many lectures. I just that just has been amazing to me, and it has been helpful on my end. I've been promoting that even to my faculty. You know, try many lectures. These are things that is going to be helpful for you in the time that you're given. Right. Also, don't be afraid to use, like like TED Talk was my was one of my I wasn't really, keen on it, but ever since using it, and now I'm able to use it now and see how it's impacting each one. So don't be afraid to use tools other than what you would usually utilize in your course room. Don't be afraid to use some other things that are going to be beneficial to help your students move forward. And this could even be a YouTube video or something, even something from City that you may have, that may have, jolt your memory on something that may have been helpful for you to in your course room. So utilize tools other than what you would usually use in your classroom. The other thing that I would also ask folks to do is share your personal stories, share your biases. These are things, listen, when they understand that Dr. Wineglass and Dr. Presley and Dr. Shipp are not, perfect people, they have challenges as well. They have to move forward in these spaces as well. Share those with your students, because these are things that's going to also assist them in how they're thinking about moving forward in the field that they're trying to go into. Be honest about your field. Be honest about your area, about the area of concentration that they're going into. And one last thing that I want to share: note taking. Note taking. Make sure that they are taking notes, and when they have these questions after taking their notes, you're able to look and see what they've jotted down and say, no, that's not. You could correct it if it's wrong, or you could say, yes, this is the right way to go. So those are the things that I wanted to, you know, let others know that they could do in order to move forward in their teaching experiences.
So I echo everything that Dr. Wineglass mentioned. I'd also really add like the aspect of transparency. I think that's really important. So how she was mentioning in regards to, ultimately we're people too. And I think oftentimes students forget that. So really emphasizing, sometimes I'll share with students, some of the struggles and the challenges that I had as an undergraduate student. So it begins to really help them connect with you. And I would suggest that it promotes a sense of belonging and inclusivity. I would say is really a big thing. And then the other piece that I would suggest is really the phrase of testing early and testing often. So really like low stake type assignments, so that students have a clear idea of where they stand before they get to the big test, and then they may struggle with it or not get the grade that they actually want. So belonging, inclusivity, definitely transparency, and then the testing early and testing often. That's what I would say.
Excellent. So I do want to give our audience today an opportunity. Do you have any questions for our panelists? You can either put your question in the chat or you are free to unmute yourself. Questions or comments? Okay, I used my ACUE practice. I waited 5 to about 7 seconds. I don't see anyone typing. So if you all will, please join me in giving our panelists a virtual round of applause for sharing their insights and their teaching excellence with us today. And for those who worked with us at the very beginning, I started off by sharing this image here, and I asked everyone to identify which image reflects for you student success. And so the majority of the people said either image 2 or image 3. And so as we conclude today's panel discussion, we've heard today, particularly as it relates to this third image, that engagement and transparency in the teaching environment has a significant impact on student success. So I encourage each of you, as you've done today, you've taken the time to invest in your professional development. But as we look forward into the academic year, the other opportunities that we will have to continue to sharpen our skills to be even better educators. So thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. Thank you to our panelists for a job well done. And I hope everyone will have a great remainder of the day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.